Hello friends, welcome. TECHMANPAT here. We've got a massive dirt report for you today. Back to the classics of multi-story dirt reports. Today we've got one about the NBN, as is tradition, about Binge losing out, Telstra getting fined again, the HFC reports on the NBN and its performance, because why not? And the YouTube exemption is making some other social media companies very, very mad. So make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for jumping in. Let's start by rolling the intro. We have, of course, a returning cast of characters in this episode. NBN choosing Amazon's Kuiper over Starlink. How is that really going to change the Australian internet landscape? Well, it seems that NBN is reportedly favoring Amazon's Project Kuiper over Elon Musk's Starlink to deliver satellite internet services to rural and regional areas. And this strategic move aims to enhance internet speeds and reduce costs for communities. Now, what's interesting is that Starlink has managed to deploy a lot more satellites than the Amazon Kuiper. And what does that mean? Well, they're much better at scale and potentially the price could be lower. But you see, the existing SkyMaster services, which relies on 2 geostationary satellites, is scheduled for decommissioning by 2032. And it has faced a lot of criticism for its inability to consistently support activities like video streaming and online gaming. Of course, we know this. People have let us know in the comments below that their SkyMaster services are unreliable. Now, NBN plans to transition to the low Earth orbit LEO satellites, which is both Amazon Kuiper and Starlink, but the Kuiper system solution is emerging as a preferred solution. The potential partnership could mark NBN's first significant long-term outsourcing of those satellite services. However, the agreement relies on approval from the Finance Minister Katy Gallagher and the Communication Minister Michelle Rowland, of course. And the upcoming federal elections could introduce delays as major decisions might stall during the caretaker period. And now Amazon has previously announced that Australia will be amongst the initial countries to access its Kuiper LEO satellites, and it's expected to be operational by 2026. So there's still a little bit of time. And this does align with NBN's objection to modernize its services at that time. Now, in recent years, NBN has experienced a decline in SkyMaster users. This decrease is, of course, attributed to customers migrating to the superior alternative, Starlink. So NBN's preference for Amazon Project Kuiper over Starlink is, I think, a very interesting move, and it signals a huge shift in Australia's satellite broadband strategy. While Musk's satellites has already built a strong presence in rural areas, the government-backed NBN seems much too keen to align with a competitor at such an early stage. And this raises a few questions. Is this about tech superiority, or is it some sort of backdoor strategic move to avoid reliance on Musk's empire? Now, I love Starlink. I think it's a great solution, and SpaceX has done a fantastic job. And Kuiper is yet to launch commercially, and NBN is making a bet that could either pay off with some stable long-term partnership or leave them stuck with an unproven system while Starlink continues to dominate. Let's see what happens. Comment below, chat there. Let's get on to the next one. This is a bit of an oldie. Binge is losing HBO content due to Max's Australia impending launch at the end of March. And look, I'm really excited for HBO Max's to launch in Australia. It's always been a contentious issue where, well, from the start, right? Game of Thrones TV show came out, it was the most popular show, and it was also the most pirated show. One of those reasons being was that, well, Max was not in Australia, and HBO has taken a long time. The problem is, despite the loss, Binge will technically still offer quite a few popular international series like Saturday Night Live, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Taskmasters, and the complete series of The Office USA and The Walking Dead. So there's still a few things that people will go to Binge, and Binge is also the cheapest ones. Their plans start at $10 a month, and I think at this stage, some people might just consider it because it's so cheap. And there are also annual plans that are going to be available for discounted rates if their person is obviously willing to commit for a full year of Binge. Now, what I find really interesting and why I want to highlight this, Foxtel, the parent company of Hubble, which owns Binge, has signed a deal with Warner Brothers, and as part of this agreement, Foxtel subscribers will receive access to Max Basic with ads plan at no additional cost to their existing Foxtel subscription. This is really interesting. It means, or at least HBO has not put Binge and Foxtel Customs out in the cold just yet. So here's my thought. Max's entry into the Australian market really reflects an increasing competitiveness of the streaming services. Why now? It offers consumers obviously more choice, but it does create another fragment across multiple platforms. Maybe this time Hubble will be better because now you've got another streaming system to add to that ecosystem of its own. The streaming services in Australia are just getting more complicated, and HBO shifting from Binge to Max, they're just kind of left subscribers already subscribed juggling another service. Yes, you get it for free, but then you got to download another app, log in and do all that stuff. And this highlights the growing frustration, I think, of the content fragmentation. And consumers don't want 5 different subscriptions, I don't think. They just want to follow their favorite shows. Now, while Binge is pivoting towards local content and sports, the loss of HBO could be a deal breaker for many. And Max's entry might offer better access to other Warner Bros. Discovery content, but also reinforces the trend studios pulling content back to their own platforms. You remember what Netflix was like. It had everything. And then all of a sudden, each single brand who had a few more than one movie in its own little world has pulled off and started their own subscription. Let me know in the comments below, is this going to be a problem for you? Do you hate how fragmented everything is? Let's move on to our next story. Telstra has been fined again for sending 10 million unwanted text. Let's have a look at this. Telstra, of course, Australia's largest telecommunication company. They have been fined $626,000 by the ACMA. They violated, obviously, the spam regulations, and between 2022 and 2024, they sent 10.5 million text messages that did not comply with Australia's spam laws. And notably, over 10.3 million of these messages required recipients to provide personal information to opt out, which is prohibited unless prior consent has been obtained. Additionally, between October 2022 and July 2023, Telstra's Belong brand sent 43,000 texts to customers who had either not consented or had withdrawn their consent to receive such messages. So, ACMA member Samantha York criticized Telstra's action, stating that spam consent rules have been enforced for over 20 years and they should know better, and they are a mature and established company, and Telstra should have no excuse for this type of non-compliance. Now, in my mind, this incident is part of a broader enforcement trend, with Australian businesses paying over 16 million in spam-related penalties in the past 18 months. Telstra getting slammed with this 600,000 odd fine for text message is another reminder that even Australia's biggest telco is not above the law. Though the penalty seems like a slap on the wrist given the scale of the breach, with over 10 million texts in violation of the spam law. Now, it's baffling that such a seasoned company struggles with compliance like this, and whether it was just a case of negligence or intentional gamble, it's clear that, well, regulators are getting more serious about protecting consumers. But will this fine actually deter Telstra in the long run, or is it just the cost of business, as many have pointed out in the past? Next up, we're circling back to the NBN and HFC and the outages that are being caused, and NBN is saying, well, it's a good thing. The ACCC's latest NBN service quality and network performance report for September 2024, which we've had a look in the past, revealed that hybrid or HFC coaxial connections accounted for the highest number of planned outages amongst all NBN technology types. And specifically, HFC represent 30% of all planned outages, escalating 52% for outages that impact over 500 individual sites. NBN interprets this data positively, which is a little bit concerning. A spokesperson explained that many of these planned outages are proactive measures to address potential network degradations before the results in a service fault, and this approach aims apparently to enhance customer experience and resolve issues preemptively. Additionally, some outages are necessary to implement network upgrades, which I completely understand, and throughout 2024, NBN Co undertook a lot of modernization efforts to improve speed and reliability, particularly for HFC customers, and these upgrades are part of the broader strategy to introduce faster fixed line speeds to boost NBN's download speeds from 120 to 550 down, and of course 250, 25, 750, 50. And the company has plans to offer the hyperfast, the 2 gigabit plans, and they're going to be available to HFC and fiber customers. So I guess I understand why they're continually fixing this, but it's surprising that they're keeping this network going. And fiber to the premise connections have accounted for 22% of plant outages, so we're not immune either, while fiber to the node only represents 19%, which is very interesting. Fixed wireless and fiber to the curb connections experienced 17% and 9% of planned outages, and fiber to the building has the fewest planned outages at 3%. And satellite NBN services reported just 20 planned outages, which represents about 1% of the total, according to this article. Now, the data collection results from the new record-keeping rules introduced by the HFC has helped to analyze if NBN Co's claims that these disruptions are necessary for long-term upgrades are actually true. And frequent outages actually frustrate users who expect a stable connection anyway. And the push towards higher speeds plans like NBN 500 and NBN 2000 is promising, but these improvements mean little if reliability remains a concern. Instead of justifying outages, NBN Co needs to focus on making network disruptions less disruptive. Because what's the point of these faster connections if they keep dropping out, even if it's planned? Lastly, YouTube's exemption from the Australia under 16 social media ban. This is really, really interesting because we've talked about the ban. It's pretty much silly because kids are going to find a way around it, especially 16-year-olds. So if you remember, in November 2024, Australia enacted legislation prohibiting social media access for individuals under 16, imposing fines of up to 49.5 million for non-compliance. Now, while platforms like Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat are affected, YouTube, where we are, it received an exemption, and while it is classified as an educational tool, hey, that really makes sense. I appreciate that because I bet you in a lot of classes people use it, and a lot of students will use it to learn things. I use it all the time to learn. I do, but I guess I'm not young. But when I was young, I used YouTube to learn. So tech companies are really mad. They're arguing that YouTube's features such as algorithmic content recommendations and social interactions are similar to those of their platforms or other social media platforms, and it does still expose young users to a comparable risk. They also say that the content that's exempting YouTube is inconsistent with the laws and intended to create an uneven playing field. An uneven playing field among billion-dollar worth social medias? I don't think so. The Australian government maintains that YouTube serves an important educational resource and they justify the exemption. However, critics argue, of course the critics always do, that YouTube's contents and features resemble social media's way too close. You can comment, so comment below what you guys think. You can like, you can search, and there's an algorithm that pushes content to you, and you can spend a lot of time on it. Australia's under 16 social ban is a drastic move. I've said this before, but YouTube's exemption makes it feel less like a policy for child safety and more like regulatory favoritism. If Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat were considered harmful, how does YouTube, with its algorithm-driven recommendations and endless rabbit holes, escape scrutiny? The argument that YouTube is educational ignores the fact that many kids use it exactly as they would any other social media platform. So in my mind, this decision isn't about child protection, it's about drawing a convenient line in the sand, even if that line makes absolutely no sense at all. Let me know your thoughts below and use this like a social media platform. So friends, thank you very much for watching this full packed dirt report. Let me know if you'd like to keep it more single storied focus or more stories. Big thanks to Ahmed, who has sent a lot of these stories to me over the week and reminded me to do a video. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye.